All right, Emily, so what's your point today?
Well, it's been a hopeful week in Washington, like the dawn of springtime instead of creeping winter. Finally, the Beltway thinks that American populism is beyond resuscitation. Donald Trump's sleepy presidential announcement landed with a thud, while right populists faltered in the midterms. Ron DeSantis, according to Wall Street and Paul Ryan, presents a plausible and palatable alternative to Trumpism, so the page can finally be turned. Well, no. They'd like the power to turn that page, sure, but they don't have it yet. I've said before that while I generally disdain politicians, period, I am favorable to the argument for Ron DeSantis. It's hard to say where he lands on populist economics and foreign policy as of right now, although his willingness to throw a middle finger up at the most powerful company in his state was a promising sign. But what we do know is that American happiness is declining. We know wages are stagnant, that the rising tide of the stock market is not lifting all boats. Mental health is worse. Suicides are up and births are down. We know war and energy and personal technologies have us on the brink of crises. TVs are cheap and people are miserable. In other words, whether he stays or goes, populism isn't tied to the fate of Donald Trump or Blake Masters or even Bernie Sanders for that matter. It's here to stay because times are bad. Now, in the scope of human history, times should feel much better. We are freer, wealthier, and healthier and more prosperous than most people who have ever lived. But we're also declining on many of those measures from one generation to another. When you ask people to choose between a traditional politician or someone who says the system is rigged and acts like it too, it's not irrational for them to throw their chips in with the guy willing to accurately diagnose the problem, even if he happens to be a cranky Vermonter or maybe even a reality TV show host. Remember when the chattering class salivated over J.D. Vance after the release of Hillbilly Elegy? They'll talk until they're blue in the face about the opioid crisis and income inequality and rural decay, but their solutions are either easy band-aids or trickle-down economics. They don't want to take hard stances or tough votes. They want to talk and tinker around the edges. That's pretty much exactly what Obamacare amounted to, for instance. What have Democrats and Republicans done with their power recently when they've had both houses of Congress and the presidency? A half-assed healthcare bill and a half-assed tax bill. Obama wanted a public option. Paul Ryan wanted taxes on postcards. You may say, sure, but this is a feature, not a bug, of Madison's checks and balance system. Well, that's true, but again, both those bills passed not with divided government, but when one party had total control of Congress. We're paralyzed by institutional capture in government, media, and business, and our daily lives are worse because of those declines. Trump disrupted our politics in some good ways and in some really bad ones. But when elites gleefully cheer his demise, they're cheering for the demise of all of those disruptions, the good ones and the bad. They don't just want calmer news cycles. They want disempowered poor people, rural and urban. They want to monitor your expression and punish you when they disagree. They want a tax code that can be cheated, happy defense contractors and pharma executives and agricultural conglomerates. They want disproportionate control of the voting process, like Mark Zuckerberg. They want oligarchy with the veneer of republicanism. So the work of serious reform is left to less than serious politicians like Matt Gaetz because nobody else has the stomach for it.
I believe that no member of Congress, by House rule, should be allowed to accept a donation for their campaign from a federal lobbyist or a federal political action committee. That money all has strings attached to it, and anybody who tries to tell you otherwise is lying. And when members take hundreds of thousands of dollars from lobbyists and PACs, they work for them more than they work for their constituents. And guess what? I intend to offer that amendment on the House floor in January, and I already have Democrats ready to vote for it, maybe even all of them. The second thing I would suggest is that if someone is a member of Congress, they should be prohibited from lobbying for life. Why is it so hard to say that you should choose one side or the other to be on? You're either in the lawmaking game or you're in the influence peddling game. And those who choose to be in the influence peddling game, go ahead, but you should sacrifice that when you get the privilege to represent 750,000 people. I intend to offer that amendment on January 3rd, and I expect that there will be Democrats voting for it. I will also introduce an amendment to have a ban on members of Congress trading individual stocks. How can we say that that is not something that dilutes our trust in markets and in governance when people are essentially able to bet on the outcomes that they have an ability to somewhat control? And I expect Democrats to vote for that. And finally, I would observe something that has really worked well in the state of Florida, a single subject rule. A bill coming to the floor should only deal with one subject. I was incensed as a freshman when I had to vote on the Farm Bill and whether or not to authorize war in Yemen in the same vote. And we can still have broad bills that relate to insurance or education or appropriations, but the notion that we lash all these things together does not serve our constituents and the American people. And I would expect, if we're in the majority, Democrats will vote for my amendment for a single subject rule.
I don't want to hear a word from Pharma or from Kevin McCarthy or Hakeem Jeffries about populism or decay or divisions until they start talking like that, because that's what it would take. Trump's boomer stop the steal BS, among other things, was harmful. If his third presidential bid fades, I hope that stuff fades with it. But unfortunately, we live in a low-trust country of people who have the luxury of not following politics closely, know they're being lied to, and are right to believe little of what they hear. The irrational position is having high trust in our institutions right now. And what are those leading institutions doing? Well, they're gathering for the New York Times DealBook Summit this month, sponsored by Accenture and Walmart and more. What's the summit, you may wonder? It's a gathering of, quote, today's most vital minds on a single stage. Naturally, that means the highest profile cronies of BlackRock and TikTok and Meta and the Fed, including Zelensky and Sam Bankman-Fried himself, are coming together under the banner of the paper of record. Surely they'll get some tough questions. There's no doubt Andrew Ross Sorkin will play the role of serious journalist as best he can. But he won't treat these folks like they should be in prison or stampeded out of polite society, which in a healthy country is exactly where some of them should be. I'm sure everyone will have all kinds of pleasant sentiments to share about unity and peace and healing our cultural wounds. But until they start talking more like Matt Gaetz did in that last clip and seriously take steps to relinquish some of their own power, they're only going to get more division and unrest, and they'll deserve it too.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Sagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.